disciplinary tribunal on Tuesday. Sergeant Paul Gauthier is expected to be charged with insubordination and neglect of duty. CBC's Talia Ricci reports.
As Bruce MacArthur sits in a courtroom next week and hears his sentence, a Toronto police officer will appear before a tribunal and learn his fate in connection with the case. The allegations against Sergeant Paul Gauthier relate to an early interaction between MacArthur and police, which some say was a missed opportunity.
Many of us in the community have been calling for action, calling for investigation, and so it's not going to be a surprise that along the way there were people who neglected their duty.
Neglect of duty and insubordination are the two counts of professional misconduct the officer is expected to be charged with.
There are all sorts of ways in which an officer might just miss a step in process, and it's called neglect. Insubordination can mean that they were ordered to do it and still neglected to do it, and then you end up with the dual charge.
Reports emerged earlier in the investigation that a man had once told police MacArthur had tried to strangle him. Police questioned, then released MacArthur sometime before 2017. It was a move that later prompted the Toronto Police Professional Standards Unit to launch an internal investigation. At least 3 of MacArthur's victims are believed to have been killed after 2016. Shelley Carroll says she hopes at the very least this hearing sparks change.
But what's really important is that even if there isn't a consequence for the officer, often there are recommendations that go straight to the service.
In a statement Friday, Gauthier's lawyer said the decision not to charge Bruce MacArthur for the 2016 incident was made in conjunction with Detective Gauthier's supervisor and based on the information available at the time. Among a series of tweets, Toronto police said the success of the MacArthur investigation was a result of the community working with the police. But not everyone in the community calls the investigation a success.
People are dead. You know, I don't think that we can claim success with this investigation.
Toronto police said in a statement to CBC News today that Gauthier will appear before the police tribunal on Tuesday morning, but wouldn't comment any further on the case. More details about the allegations against the officer are expected after his appearance. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
After working around the clock for 2 days, the stubborn fire at Agincourt Recreation Centre is finally out. But the centre is destroyed and thousands of people and dozens of community teams it serves are now in limbo. Natalie Nanowski has the details.
Summer, I would love the pool area. Winter, a skating rink would be nice. And now we have nothing.
Max Ganera and his father would visit the recreation centre about once a week. Now they'll have to find somewhere else to go.
This was really convenient for us. We actually live down the street. Pretty busy, yeah. A lot of people here, a lot of older people using the swimming pool and the jacuzzi.
The fire was mainly concentrated in that swimming area. It started Thursday afternoon and took nearly 2 days and 50 firefighters to put out.
We called the fire out at 7:40 this morning, and we stopped playing water on it a little while afterwards.
Even though the building is covered in layers of ice, drone operators spent a good chunk of the day scanning the charred roof for potential hotspots. Some witnesses told the Ontario Fire Marshal they saw smoke coming from the second floor near an equipment room.
So we want to make sure if we have electricity there, it's a potential cause for ignition.
That area is just part of the investigation. That's far from over.
We will not have any indication as to specifically where the fire started, what caused it, or any of those circumstances until that's done. Likewise, we won't have any specific information with respect to anticipated dollar loss and damage estimates until such time as the investigation is done and the city's insurance professionals and fire loss experts and engineers are able to get in and assess the damage.
No one was injured in the blaze, and crews worked tirelessly to keep the fire from engulfing the whole building. The 2 rinks appear to be untouched.
With respect to it being able to be used, that's something that still has to be determined. There are some of the equipment that feeds the arena process, the refrigeration process, is located in this building, so that needs to be assessed.
The city promises to rebuild Agincourt no matter what the cost. It's also looking for other locations to host the dozens of classes and programs that usually take place at the center. But right now, all the programming is canceled until further notice. People can also contact the city for refund information. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
A man was struck and killed by a transport truck driver on Highway 401 today. OPP say he was walking along the eastbound express lanes of the highway close to the Yonge Street exit when he was hit by the passing truck around 2 o'clock this afternoon. Police say the driver of the truck is cooperating with the investigation. They're asking anyone who witnessed the fatal collision to contact the OPP. To Ottawa now, where a passenger on the transit bus that crashed in January has launched a $6 million lawsuit, claiming her injuries will mean a loss of income and a hefty bill for future health care. 3 people died on January 11th when a double-decker bus crashed into a station overhang. Gwen Lambert was sitting on the top deck of that bus when the crash occurred, according to a draft of the lawsuit. Her lawyer says both her legs were severely injured. The suit alleges negligence by the City of Ottawa, Transit Agency, OC Transpo, and the driver of the bus. The province of Ontario is also named for failing to require transit buses to have seat belts. The City of Ottawa declined to comment on the suit. The province did not respond to a request for comment, and none of the claims has been proven in court. More than a dozen people in Ottawa gathered today to remember an Indigenous man who was shot and killed after an altercation with 2 Ottawa police constables earlier this week. Community members say they want justice for Greg Ritchie. Ontario's police watchdog is now investigating the case. CBC's Christely Ramlakan has more.
A community in mourning. They came together at the Ottawa police station to honor Greg Ritchie.
This is the turning point in our circle.
Ritchie was shot by Ottawa police after an altercation Thursday at the Elmvale Acre Shopping Centre in the city's southeast end.
His life, having been lost, is not going to be in vain. It's not going to be in vain. He's going to be a catalyst. Remember this. My brother is a catalyst for the bundle.
Families say Ritchie was dealing with mental health issues and was on his way to get medication when the shooting happened. They say Ritchie feared how people perceived him as an Indigenous person, and they want police to be better trained when it comes to dealing with people with mental health issues. People here say they've heard stories like Ritchie's before.
This is unacceptable. I'm a mother of a special needs son, and I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my son. We've had altercations with the police.
Ontario's police watchdog says Ritchie was holding a weapon but has not specified what it was. Sources tell CBC News one of the police members was cut on the forehead and a taser was deployed during the incident. The other constable involved has been charged by SIU before with assault causing bodily harm following the arrest of an intoxicated homeless man. He was acquitted. Ontario's Special Investigations Unit is doing an independent investigation, but some here have their doubts.
I really truthfully don't trust the system.
I don't know about these things because it seems like when it comes to justice for us, no, we don't trust it.
Ottawa police say they did meet with those who gathered here today and family of Ritchie's to listen to their concerns. SIU continues to look into what happened. Christely Ramlakan, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's Auditor General, Michael Ferguson, has died. He had been battling cancer over the past several months. According to a statement, he was surrounded by his family in his final hours. Ferguson was appointed Auditor General in November of 2011. His term was set to end in 2021. Before that role, he served in various positions in the New Brunswick provincial government, including a stint as its Auditor General. Some of the issues he paid particular attention to were the Phoenix pay system, Indigenous services, and sexual misconduct in the military. He was 60 years old. A York University student has shared a video showing her struggling with her wheelchair along a snow-covered campus path. Since being posted on Twitter Thursday, it's received tens of thousands of views and hundreds of shares, once again raising the issues students with mobility constraints struggle with. Kelda Ewan reports.
By now, Ali Embry is used to this. kind of an extra difficulty to add into the day. This isn't anything new, and this also isn't something unique to me.
But this week, the law student decided to post a video to show others her struggle getting across a snow-covered path in a wheelchair. In it, her friend is trying to push her along. Eventually, they get stuck.
We'd had a lot of difficulty. We were pretty frustrated.
The video has since garnered over 50,000 views and has been shared over 700 times. 3 days later, the path Ali had trouble on has been cleared. York University told CBC News it was cleared several times since the snow began, but unfortunately it wasn't adequate and we need to do better. The school also tells us it plans to perform more frequent checks, saying, with storms there is blowing snow, so even if it was cleared in the morning, doesn't mean we shouldn't check it in the afternoon. Imri says she has flagged the problem numerous times before and would like to see a more permanent solution.
It's exhausting just kind of having to go through it again and again and bring it up with people, and I appreciate that. I think especially after the amount of snow we've had this week, it is really hard to get everything cleared and keep it cleared. But the one thing then that I think needs to happen is that there needs to be ways to identify what paths are frequently used by students with mobility aids and mobility impairments or vision impairments or anything that could make using the snow covered paths more challenging, and then those areas need to be given priority clearing.
She is also quick to point out this isn't just a York University issue.
Typically, Ali would take this sidewalk to get to class, but as you can see, it is still covered in snow. She says that's because this part of the sidewalk is actually owned by the city of Toronto, and she says they rarely clear it.
We reached out to the city, and they say they are looking into the matter. Meanwhile, Imbri hopes her video will do more than just get one path cleared.
This is a much broader issue than just this specific path.
Saying sidewalk clearing isn't a luxury, it's essential to people with disabilities. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, as much of the province is coming out of that extreme cold snap, Groundhog Day has rolled around again, which means it's time to find out whether or not we're in for another 6 weeks of winter, or if spring is on the way.
Happy Groundhog Day!
Wyerton Willie has predicted an early spring, and our neighbors to the south agree as well. The U.S. groundhog Punxsutawney Phil predicts an early spring too. But Nova Scotia's Shubenacadie Sam had a completely different prediction. He actually saw his shadow this year, which means Canadians on the East Coast may be in for a longer winter. I don't know, Sophia, did you agree with the predictions?
Well, I love all the pomp and circumstance, and for the short term, I agree with the furry forecaster. It's in the long term that the jury is kind of out whether spring will actually hold up, especially in February. But shall we talk about the short term? Because let's bask in the groundhog's glory for just a minute. Temperatures climb out of the basement, finally. We will be above the freezing mark. And doesn't that feel warm? Like to actually talk about being above the freezing mark when we have been acclimatized, the temperatures, similar to that, Arctic-esque. Gone are the days for the next 24 to 36 hours when you can go to the coffee shop and gripe about how cold it is. Because Sunday, we are sitting pretty at 4 degrees, and we are even warmer for Monday. Tuesday, though, things fall back down to that basement. And with this rise and fall that will continue into midweek will come a really messy system. The start will be tonight. Freezing drizzle, maybe some light rain, patchy freezing rain even, Niagara, GTA region. It's just the predecessor for the bigger system that will be an all-day Monday story. It's rain though, which means it's warm, folks, but when we come back, we'll talk more about how that rain could accelerate the snow melts and of course a big flood risk as well. But for now, early spring. Let's go with it.
Exactly, but we'll check in with you in a few. Thanks, Sophia.
Sounds good.
As we know, February is Black History Month, and this year's theme is Know the Past, Shape the Future. York Regional Police held a celebration with Black community members at its headquarters. There were live performances, speeches, and food. Robin Dubé is a police services board member and one of the speakers. He says celebration is good, but there's something more to be done to deliver a message of hope to a broader audience.
I have a feeling that the message is at a high level, and it is not going down to the common folks. And I think the whole thing needs to go down to the people who are there and who are probably not thinking that there is any hope for them. To feel proud of their history.
And there's our very own Dwight Drummond who emceed the event today. Stay with us. We'll be right back. A day after the U.S. announced plans to withdraw from a landmark nuclear arms treaty with Russia, Moscow says it will follow suit. Yesterday, the U.S. pledged to pull out of 1987's Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty in 6 months, demanding an end to what it called Russian violations. Today, Vladimir Putin is blaming the Americans. CBC's Chris Brown reports from Moscow.
With his grim-looking foreign and defense ministers joining him for a televised morning meeting, Vladimir Putin announced Russia's next step after the U.S. said it was pulling out of the INF. We will provide a mirror-like response, said Putin. They have declared they are suspending the deal, so we are suspending it as well. The Russian president then went on to say that Russia would immediately start research and development programs for intermediate-range weapons that have been banned on the European continent for over 30 years. But Putin went on to say that no new weapons would actually be deployed unless the U.S. does so first. In truth, Putin has been saying for a decade that he was unhappy with the treaty, which limits U.S. and Russian missiles but does not speak to China or other countries. So in many ways, the U.S. has given Putin exactly what he wanted. As well, Russia claims existing NATO weapon systems now in Romania and soon to be deployed in Poland are easily adjustable to cover intermediate ranges. While NATO countries issued a statement supporting the U.S. move, there is also obvious anxiety in Europe, fearing this could mark the start of a new and dangerous arms race. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
The saga around Virginia's governor took a turn toward the bizarre today. Yesterday, Ralph Northam apologized after a picture from his medical school yearbook page surfaced showing two men, one in a Ku Klux Klan outfit and the other in blackface. But today, Northam insisted it's not him in the photo. Melissa Kent has more.
Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia has made a complete about-face.
It was offensive, racist, and despicable.
He now says a racist photo from his 1984 medical school yearbook is not him. It shows one person in blackface next to another person in a full Ku Klux Klan sheet and hood. The rest of the page is filled with photos of Northam and his name in giant font across the top.
When I was confronted with the images yesterday, I was appalled that they appeared on my page, but I believe then and now that I am not either of the people in that photo.
Today's press conference is in complete contrast to what the Democratic governor said less than 24 hours ago in a statement released by his office and in this video.
I am deeply sorry. I cannot change the decisions I made, nor can I undo the harm my behavior caused then and today. But I accept responsibility for my past actions, and I am ready to do the hard work of regaining your trust.
He says he recognizes he still has work to do to regain people's trust because he's changed his story.
Racism is something we have to deal with in this country, and you don't deal with it after you've been exposed. You deal with it before you've been exposed.
Northam is already facing resistance.
I have not spoken with Northam, our state president of Virginia, have spoken with him, and our position is the same. We think it's time for him to resign.
Many high-profile Democrats have joined the chorus of voices calling for the governor to step down. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, presidential hopeful Kamala Harris, former Vice President Joe Biden. Like many other Democrats, Biden says Justin Fairfax is the leader Virginia needs now. The 39-year-old lieutenant governor is a former prosecutor and vocal on the issue of race. Northam says Fairfax has been supportive in the wake of the scandal, but on the issue of his own party asking him to step down.
And as long as I feel that I can lead, I will continue to do that. If I reach a point where I am not comfortable with that, then obviously we will sit down and have that discussion.
Melissa Kent, CBC News, New York.
Preparations are underway for what's known as the world's toughest dog sled race, the Yukon Arctic Ultra. Safety is on top of mind this year after two of the athletes lost limbs to frostbite last year. Jane Sponigal reports.
This is where 30 sled dog teams are leaving from today, and over the next 9 days, they'll cover almost 1,600 kilometers before reaching the finish line in Fairbanks, Alaska. Many say the Yukon Quest is tougher than its cousin, the Iditarod. There are 4 mountains to climb, each at least 1,000 meters high. There are fewer checkpoints, which means longer distances between rest stops, and it's a month earlier, so it's darker and colder. Organizers have been keeping a close eye on the weather. Trail conditions are better than expected, but parts of the trail still have little snow, so changes have been made to the race, like trucking dogs between 2 of the checkpoints, and when mushers leave here today, they can use as few as 8 dogs for the first 2 legs of the race, before using 14 dogs later on. Jane Sponigal, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A live shot for you of Nathan Phillips Square. It's about -4 outside. We'll have your long-range weather forecast after the break. Stay with us. Sophia's back now for the long range. How are we looking?
Well, it's time to buckle up once again for the temperature roller coaster. The warm-up will be nice, but it'll come with the potential of some freezing rain, heavier rain into the start of your work week, especially for the evening commute. And we're talking rain that will accelerate snow melt. Typical areas prone to flooding risk will certainly be the case this time around. And then things bottom out and dive back down once again, and it'll be with more active weather, a significant, potentially more potent system middle into the end of next week with more of a freezing rain threat. But for the early part of the work week, the freezing rain threat will be greater for those of you heading up to or that have family in the nation's capital region, in the Ottawa area and eastern Ontario. We'll get a little taste of some freezing rain and freezing drizzle around Niagara region and the GTA overnight tonight into tomorrow. And then really it's a Sunday, Monday story, really anywhere from north of Georgian Bay all the way into the nation's capital region with the potential of over 10 hours of ice accretion and freezing rain. And then our more active, messy system in the GTA and parts of southern Ontario will be a Monday story. This is the potential of some moderate and heavy rain, especially the latter half of the day Monday. We're talking not a ton, 5 to 10 millimeters, but you add that to heavy melt with a warm up on the way, and then more rain accelerating that snow melt, and of course make sure all the storm drains are clear so that that snow has somewhere to go. Enjoy this warm up though, because then things bottom out, a mild and messy stretch ahead. And of course, we can all bask in the spring that is yet to come, according to the groundhog.
Can't wait. Thanks, Sophia.
Fingers crossed.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Have a great night, everyone.